You know, I normally don't really cover PRs from the JP tournament PR pack because the way you guys will get this card for English side will usually be very different from how the Japan will get it. But for once they decided to release a brand new boss unit in the PR, I have to cover. I mean, one of my stitch here now is essentially talk about my first impression on a certain boss unit and the deck pilots around it.
No, he's got a point.
And this time round, I would say it is a very interesting deck because all you really need, if you are lucky, is one single Radical Monasterio start decks.
Are you serious?
And I don't mean the older ones, I mean the one that everyone has a lot of complaint about, because for once that is exactly what you need.
You serious?
And today I'm gonna be talking about a very first PR unit that come in JP tournament booster pack, Floseria. And in all fairness, there's not much to talk about the right line because there's only one unit in the whole right line, and that is the boss unit herself, Flush Blush Floseria. Try to say that name 3 times as fast. This card has 4 skill, which is a really rare thing to see. But if you know anything with standards now, if there is a lot of skills, one of them is usually some kind of restrictions. But for now, I'm not gonna talk about that restriction first. Let's talk about quote-unquote a good effect of this card, as she does have 1 constant, 1 act, and 1 auto. Constant, all units on your card circle get additional 5k shield, and if you play an order this turn, all your front row units get additional 5k. Do not this refer to any order, so Blitz order will also trigger this skill, and looking at the skill alone is actually really good. A lot of card number in standard usually kind of force you to guard additional card just because there is a 5k difference, and this card actually makes essentially all of your triggers a 20k shield. This deck in terms of guarding, it shouldn't be too worrying as compared to some of the other deck that has a weaker defense.
Are you sure about that?
And that additional 5k is a really nice touch. This means that this deck essentially kind of equates to whatever you're trying to guard, that's additional 10k power increment, which is really good. And I can safely say the same to her X skill as well as her auto skill, where her X skill by Soul Blasting 1 and Energy Blast 2, you can look at top 7 card of your deck, choose up to 2 unit card among them, call them to Radical Circle, and choose up to 1 other card among them, review it and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck.
Genuinely disgusting.
This is a very strong filter, and initially I don't like this kind of filter because it kind of locks you into a certain type of cards, but the fact that it is generic enough for it to actually matter actually is a really good thing, and you more or less gonna want to use this skill every single turn just to make sure that you populate the field fast enough. Because of her auto skill, where when this is an attack, counter blast 1, choose one of your rare card and stand it. If your drop zone has 5 or more order card with different names, choose up to 2 rare card instead of 1.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The restand skill is a very nice touch, and the fact that it doesn't have any other restriction on that skill itself means that you technically can use it as early as turn 3, turning this deck into a
Spicy
rush deck. But all of this goodness kind of has to be turned out of a window because of the restriction condition that I have mentioned earlier. Constant on Vanguard, you cannot call unit with any skill that does have constant, act, or auto abilities.
What the fuck?
And yes, this cannot be called to guard circle as well. This is a reason why a lot of people has a lot of rejection toward this particular card. This literally forces you to play a vanilla deck, and that's why I say the quick start deck actually matters here, because most of the cards you're gonna be running in your deck are vanillas. And now that I have play tested it, you know, it's not that bad.
Nani?
It's not that bad at all. There are definite demerit to this particular skill, but overall I would say there are more good things than a lot of people think it is, because this is a second attempt that Bushi was trying to go with vanilla playstyle. You see, back in I think 2020, they released a group of support for premium, namely Cyclone, Thunder, the Grade 3, and then of course Zazen.
And of course Tempest Sphere.
This was intended to be a vanilla playstyle deck, but because of how generic they make those cards was at that time, it really can't abuse it.
Stupid!
And since then, Bushi is a little bit too scared to actually attempt to bring this playstyle back again. I mean, it took almost 4 years for them to bring back this similar playstyle. And they decided to bring it to Rillico, which in my opinion is actually not a bad nation to restart this trend in, because a lot of orders in Rillico are generally quite good, with the exception of Blitz orders. The Blitz orders in Rillico are generally really shit, but it is simple enough for the deck to take advantage of without going overkill if you'd be trying to attempt with nation like Keter Sanctuary.
But
The biggest drawback I have to say with the condition is the fact that you cannot call sentinels.
No, God!
Which is a huge deal in general, and the only way for you to guarantee a perfect card is through cards like Elementaria Sanctitude, which is currently only allowed to be run 1 copy of in your deck, which is a little bit stinks. And that's why I say if you are lucky, because there is 1 in 6 chance that you will get an Elementaria from your start deck. And another small issue that I will have here as I tested it is the fact that the requirement of hitting 5 order are actually harder than it looks, because you don't really discard a lot. So this means that unless you pull cards like Sanctitude early, or you have order that does help you to discard, like the grade 1 order that help you to bounce a card from your field, it's not gonna be easy for you to hit 5 attacks. So what are the good points and the bad points of the deck? For one, in terms of resource, you don't need to worry about it. It has a really good resource filtering, on top of the fact that it has a decent number of power despite being a rush deck. And Floseria synergy with order is actually not that bad. There are definitely order that's for a shake and take advantage that can actually push the number really well, and of course 5 attacks. But the deck also have a really big flaw, and that is of course ability to not being able to use any other constant act or auto abilities aside from the Vanguard, on top of the fact that you can't even use a normal sentinel to actually guard. And setting up for 5 different order in Europe zone are not the easiest, even with the help of Realistar right line, which technically you can run. And that's Floseria. The boss unit that, in my honest opinion, was actually looks terrible, but it does play better than you expected, and at the same time it should be quite a budget deck to build if you are lucky with your really cool start deck pool, that is. But what do you guys think? Is this card actually fun enough for you to actually play? Because let's be real, this is a fun deck boss. Do leave down in the comments below. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Take care of yourself, and this is Mac Mechanic signing out.